Hi, I'm Melissa Bell, and welcome to the Business Roundup, where we catch up with the movers and shakers in the business world. Today, joining me is Brooke Lively. She's a best-selling author, serial entrepreneur, and a business growth whisperer. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me on, Melissa.
So, you have a unique journey because we were talking a little bit before we got on the call. So, you focus a lot on the legal industry, but not just there. It's kind of a broad range of businesses, and your background is definitely not specifically in legal. It's more in like business and that type of thing. So, we'll talk. It has you've got a really kind of a broad spectrum there as far as different things that you're into. So, we'll talk a little bit about that first, and then business in general, I think, is changing. And we'll talk a little bit about how it's changing and maybe dive into a little bit of just the digital transformation. AI is hard not to like acknowledge that. So I guess, yeah.
Sounds perfect.
Okay, perfect. So first, do you mind giving a little bit about your background and kind of how you got into being a business growth whisperer?
Yeah, like so many things for so many entrepreneurs, it was kind of by accident. I mean, how many times have you heard that, Melissa?
No, I haven't.
You haven't?
Oh, the business whisperer. I haven't heard that one, but I have heard usually, yes, no, landing into something. Yes. Usually you're not
It's
always looking for it.
Yeah, I wasn't looking for it. I had kind of a weird career. I had done all kinds of things. I went back to grad school a little later. I was working for a hedge fund and ended up just by circumstances running my family's law firm. And I only knew how to run it one way. I knew how to run it like a business using numbers and data, and I didn't know any differently. Most attorneys don't run their firms like a normal business. They truly run them like a practice. And so it's a lot of gut instinct. And I had hired someone to help with sales and marketing, and his clients came to me and said, "Can you do for us what you do for your family?" And I was like, "What do you mean what I do for my family? Doesn't everybody work like this?" Turns out the answer was no. And so I started Cathcap, which is a fractional CFO company. And we started to help law firms. We've now expanded. We're pretty industry agnostic, though we do have a specialization in law firms and in construction. But if you think about it, the only companies that have CFOs, that have access to true, like, strategic financial advice are huge companies like Apple and, Texaco, and think in Walmart. Think
Amazon.
about all the big
I know, right?
Amazon. There you go. That's okay. However, the vast majority of the US economy is powered by small businesses. And so it really frustrated me that the core of the economy is not getting that strategic financial advice. And that's why really I love CathCap and I love what we do because we go in and help these people who have built good companies, but they built them because of a passion, or they built them because they have a specific skill, or they built them because they just kind of fell into it and it happened. Most people don't start or buy a business because they want to run a business.
That is true. Yeah.
Yeah. So we love helping companies grow and scale and, do that hard finance part that nobody likes.
That is a good point because I have to say, I would say finance is definitely not my strong suit. And I think, when you get into something like, let's say you did it for a passion or you fell into it or whatever, you're kind of going along, it's growing. Sometimes it starts growing at a fast rate, more than you're expecting. And then you overspend, you get into debt, accrue all these different things and you're not really, what's coming in is not what, it's not like what's going out is not what's coming, enough to cover what's coming, vice versa coming in. What's coming in is not enough to cover what's coming out.
Or,
Yeah.
Melissa, people do the other side too, where they won't spend the money. They won't take the risk. They won't hire the additional employees. They won't make the investments back in the company that are really the things that help it grow.
That's a good point too. It keeps it stagnant because I was told as well, like if you don't give up, even as far as having like you're like you own a company. At some point, you have to relinquish some of your some to somebody else. Otherwise, you can't. You can only do so many things in the day. So there has to be somebody you trust enough to take on those responsibilities, and that's kind of like what you're saying too. You have to be able to put that money back into the company. Sometimes it's in, just hiring a good financial person to help you with these type of things.
But sometimes it's a new piece of machinery, or it's a new employee, or it's a marketing opportunity. So it's not always about overspending. Sometimes it's about underspending also.
And now when you work with companies, what are some of the things that you look at? What are the common, let's say the common issues, the top issues that you see, and what are some of the things that you help them?
I think one of the things we see the most is the way they pay their people. So they're either paying them too much, or they're incentivizing them. Their pay structure incentivizes the employees to do things that the company doesn't really want them to do, and doesn't incentivize them to do things that the company does want them to do. And it, for most companies, payroll really is your biggest expense. And if we can't get payroll under control and dialed in and really working for you, it's going to be hard to work on anything else.
That makes sense. So you really have, so that's one of the first things you kind of look at when you're kind of talking to with somebody.
We look at where people are spending their money, and are they spending it in a way that is advantageous? Are we overspending on marketing? Are we underspending on marketing? Are we spending too much on our people? Are we not spending enough on our people? And like I said, are we spending it on our people in the right way? And then one of the other things we spend a lot of time doing is really just looking for the friction points in the business. It's funny because people, I'll talk about comp structures, I'll talk about process, I'll talk about digging into marketing. People are like, "You're a CFO. Why are you talking about marketing? Or why are you talking to me about, these things?" And I said, "Well, here's the thing. As a CFO, we talk and think about everything that touches your money. Tell me one part of your business that does not touch your money."
That's true.
You can't think of one. Yeah, I keep saying I'm going to give somebody a big prize if they can come up with one, and I don't know what the big prize is, but I'm not too concerned about it because no one's ever come up with anything. So I'm like, "Eh."
Right. Mhm.
But yeah, we dig in and we look for those friction points because those friction points cost you money.
And that's the other thing too, I think is like friction points. What would be the difference between a friction point and like more like, I don't want to say like a loss, but where you're like losing money type of thing. You have friction points and you have where you're like losing money and you need to kind of rein it in because there's like things that you're doing not properly or improperly.
Like when you're charging $100 for something that takes $150 to produce and get out the door. Yeah. Um, you know, it's interesting. As a CFO, we sit and we pull your financials and we look at your financials first. And they're just kind of like cliff notes. And they say, you need to go dig deeper here. So, yeah, you want to look at pricing. Are we pricing things well? And, especially if you're selling products, manufacturing products, it is hard to keep repricing every week, but your input prices are changing every week. And that's really hard. So, like, how do you balance that? How often do you raise prices? How much do you raise prices? Because you need to raise them in advance of your rising costs, but not so much that it kills your sales. So It's interesting. You just kind of start with the financials and dig around and look for all those places where you're either losing money or, when I said friction points, we also talk about leaking money. So it's not, you're not losing it. The dam hadn't broken. It's not totally flooding down the street, but it's definitely leaking out.
A little bit here and there, enough to over like time is going to accumulate
Yeah. And it is amazing what small changes they can make a really big impact.
on your bottom line. And now, what are some of the other common issues faced today? And I know, I mean, do you see anything different than maybe like, I don't know, 5 years ago? Things that are happening because I know we were talking to digital transformation and AI. It's supposed to make things easier, but I know people are spending a lot of money on it too to put these things in place.
So I work with a lot of service based businesses. I specialize in law firms, but marketing agencies, doctors, dentists. We work with some accounting firms, anyone who sells basically brain power. And AI for them is fascinating. A lot of people see it as a big threat. So I was working with a client last week before last, and they wanted to create an AI product for a particular segment of their customers. However, they have one big client that spends about $400,000 a year buying a hand done version of what they wanted to create with AI. And they're like, we can't give up $350,000 worth of revenue. I'm like, no, you can't. So they were like, we have to hide the fact that we are going to have this AI product from them. I was like, oh, no, 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 no. We developed two versions of the AI product. There's an inexpensive version, and then there is this highly detailed version that starts with AI, has a little bit of, or has some human on top of it. Said, and then you go to your client and you say, we have figured out a way to produce this for less. We want to pass that on. We're going to cut the price from X to Y. We're going to save you about, was it 160,000 a year? I think they were going to save them.
Oh my goodness.
Now, what client doesn't like someone coming to them and saying, we have figured out a way to save you $160,000 a year?
Oh, definitely puts it in a whole new way. And then it also gives the ability, let's say somebody wanted the more detailed or they wanted to go the other route for whatever reason, they, wanted to be, yeah, they have,
But here is this client who's going to get the same product they had for less money. The trust has been built up immensely,
yes.
and the company that's doing it has now increased their margin. So a lot of people look at AI as an either or. Like, if I develop an AI product, I have to sell the AI product and I'm going to lose revenue because I used to do this with people. But it's not necessarily that way. You can you can split the savings with your clients. Just be upfront about it. I can save you this much money. I figured out how to do it. You don't have to tell them that, you're doubling your margin.
Right. Just,
That's not relevant.
but no, but that's a good point though. Very much so. That's a great way of looking at it. And like you said, again, you're building trust too, because if for some reason you hide those facts and then they were for some reason to find out, then it just breaks everything that you've built with that.
That feels really, in very technical terms, yucky.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Absolutely. I know.
Don't you like that business term I just threw out
Yeah,
there?
I know. I know. Sometimes there's only one way to, I mean, there's, just the just the bottom line to how to there's no dancing around it.
Exactly.
Definitely. And now I know you've written quite a few books as well. The latest one is out. It's called Scaling Law. Can you discuss a little bit about that book and what we're going to find in it? And is it obviously it's more meant for the legal field, I would assume.
Yeah. I'll tell you how it came about. In our CFO company, we were really analyzing the results of our clients, who was showing a lot of progress with us, who wasn't, and we could basically divide clients into three buckets. Bucket A started working with us and had incredible results. Think hockey stick, everything high and to the right. That's awesome. Then there was bucket B, and they were making good progress, steady. And then there was bucket C that, Melissa, you couldn't even tell they were working with us. And so we were going, what are we doing with bucket A that we're not doing with bucket C? And we're not bringing enough value. And so, you know, we're CFOs, we're pretty data driven. So we started digging into the data. And what we discovered was we gave buckets A and C the same type of advice, the same tools, the same strategies. Bucket A executed and bucket C didn't. And we're like, okay, that's interesting. We wonder what makes bucket A execute so much better. Why, when we tell bucket A to go do X, they do it, and we tell bucket C the same thing, and 5 months later, they're still going, well, we really need to get some more information about that. And when we dug in, we found out that almost every company, with the exception of one, in bucket A was running on EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And that was life changing for us, because when we figured that out, we weren't surprised because we run on EOS, but it became our number one outgoing referral because we saw what a huge impact it made from numbers. I mean, we had the data. This is what, this is what, where the impact is created. So, because I happen to be one of the ones in the company that specializes in legal, I eventually became an EOS implementer. And so this book is actually published by EOS. I'm the only EOS implementer in the US that works exclusively with law firms. And EOS liked what I was doing and liked what I had to say. And they said, yeah, we'll happily publish a book about implementing EOS in law firms.
Very nice. And it just kind of now it lays out or some can you just give us a few like examples of what it lays out in the book?
Yeah. So for people who don't know anything about um, EOS gives you, it's just a set of simple tools that gives you three things. It gives you vision, traction, and healthy. So vision, meaning you know where you're going, what that looks like, and you have shared that with everybody in your company. So they all share that same vision. Traction is really just getting everybody in the company rowing in the same direction towards that one vision. And healthy is building a culture where everybody likes each other. They enjoy working together and they can be really productive. And EOS does this by looking at six different key components. And those are vision, which I've mentioned, people, data, issues, process, and traction. You know, we're not going to get there if we don't know where we're going, which is vision. We can't get anywhere without great people. And we, have borrowed from Jim Collins with the put the right people in the right seats. Right people are the core values match, right seat where they actually understand the job, want the job, and have the capacity to do it. Data, It used to be that people didn't have enough data. Now they're inundated by it, and it all becomes noise. So what are those 5 to 15 important numbers that will give you the pulse of what's going on in your company so that you can make fast decisions? Then issues is just about identifying problems, um, removing the stigma of identifying problems, solving them at their roots so they go away forever. Process is getting people to do it the right way the first time. Because, Melissa, isn't it so much better when you don't have to yell at people about doing it the wrong way? You don't have to go behind people and clean up. Isn't that a better environment?
I know. Yeah,
It's
then you
also a lot more profitable.
yeah, because when you have to go back and redo it and go over the stuff, it's yeah, and then it costs you your time. You already paid them for their time. So now if people now right now, where would they find the book? Where is Scaling Law going to be? Is it on Amazon and bookstores? So for people who are interested in finding out more or getting the book, where can they find the book Scaling Law? Is it on Amazon in stores?
It is on Amazon, it's at Barnes& and Noble. But yeah, the easiest place is probably Amazon. Does anybody really go anywhere else anymore?
I know. It's just all order, they want it sent to the house. I used to like the
I
Barnes&
was
and Noble.
in I have to tell you this because this was so funny. I was in, California a week or 2 ago, and I said, "I need somewhere to buy a book." And they're like, "Oh, well, there's a bookstore." I was like, "There's an actual bookstore?" You could have knocked me over with a feather. I had fun in the bookstore.
It is fun. I used to like the Barnes& and Noble's trips. That was like my Sunday. Like, I lived in Miami, and sometimes I would just go and get some coffee, and it was like a place to kinda disconnect from everything and relax. So,
It's fun, but yeah, so the book's available on Amazon, which is, happily will be delivered to your doorstep tomorrow. Um, yeah, that's
okay.
probably the easiest way.
And I know you
Okay, we are back to moving mouth, no volume. Oh,
did you hear so the other book
yeah.
that I was gonna mention was From Panic to Profit, and this is how 6 key numbers can make a six-figure difference in your, law firm. Now, this book, you said it's not just for legal, firms, correct?
No, that book is actually part of the series. So we have Panic to Profit for law firms. We also have Panic to Profit for entrepreneurs, which is industry agnostic. And it really talks about the six different, look at me, it's all about sixes today. The six different areas of your business and what the main number in that area is that you should be monitoring and understanding. And I say I write in kitchen table English. I don't use any of the words from my MBA. I don't use anything that's difficult. Your fifth grader can understand it. So it's really approachable and it really just helps you get kind of a grip on something that's really pretty intimidating to a lot of people.
Yeah, I think, well, in general, just financial numbers and figures and trying to dive in, taxes. I mean, that's another part of it, but
Oof.
that's intimidating on its own. And yeah, making sure
I
you have your books straight,
say, Melissa, even I don't do tax.
right? I
I'm
know.
like, I'm out.
It is intimidating, but that's great. So for people, and the same thing, they could find that on Amazon. And it's for,
Amazon,
uh,
Barnes& and Noble, but make sure that hold please, if you are not a law firm, you want the green version
okay.
because the green version is the one for entrepreneurs.
Okay, which is not industry specific. Perfect. And now, also, if people wanted more information on just consulting with you and the company, to have like a deeper dive, where would be the best way to find more information?
There are 2 places. If you are a law firm and you wanna learn how to build and scale that law firm using EOS, the best place to go is scalinglaw.com. If you're not a law firm, or even if you are, but you really need help digging deep into the financials and getting that strategic financial advice, The best place to go is cathcap.com, cathcap.com.
Okay, perfect. Well, wonderful. Well, I really appreciate you joining us today. And I've learned quite a bit. And I definitely want to check out, I think the one in the green for me, I think any entrepreneur, just being able to like look at those things and trying to see where you can make adjustments and changes is a great place to start. So,
Well, I appreciate it. I have a former client that goes back and he reads Panic to Profit every year. And I'm like, haven't you learned everything in it? And he said that interestingly, every year he's in a slightly different place and he gets just one more little tweak that makes just that little difference and has big impact. So, you know, there's something for everybody in there.
okay, well, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And it was a pleasure meeting you.
Thanks for having me, Melissa. I appreciate it.
Thank you for joining the Business Roundup, where we always try to bring you interviews with some of the leading people in business, whether it be technology, finance, or energy. I hope you tune in. I hope you subscribe and listen, and we'll give you updates for new interviews that are coming up. Until next time, I'm Melissa Bill.